All right, so so this is our second recorded interview then, Mr. King. So our first one was very much talking about the program in a more broader context and getting into a little bit of detail. The second one is now us very much getting into some of the specifics and the nitty-gritty of what to expect if you're a mentor and you're thinking about working with a young person. So again, start with a little bit of an overview, and then we've got some specific questions that some people have already sent through. So I'll go through those and then we can give our responses to them. Sound like a plan? So we don't need to do the introductions because we're trusting the fact that everyone's watched the first video because it was so bloody brilliant and everything else. So I suppose first things first then, when we're thinking about, if I was a manager and I came to you, Zeke, and said, I've heard about the program, what should I expect in the first couple of weeks when I'm first starting to work with you? Actually, let me go back one first. So before the managers and the mentees and mentors come together, both groups go on their individual program readiness pathways, which we've designed to get both groups ready to actually come together face to face. So in my mind as a potential mentor, I've got a good understanding of the readiness program to get me ready to mentor a young person. On one of those readiness pathways, obviously on one of those workshops where you and I are both going to be co-delivering them. And as a manager, I'm on one of those workshops. I look up, I say to Zeke, just out of interest, what could I expect when I first meet my mentee?
You could expect for it to take a little bit of time for the mentee and the mentor, meaning you yourself, to understand each other and to find some common ground. So, of course, you're going to have your cards pretty close to your chest, which a lot of business people do. The mentee is also going to have his cards close to his chest and not a lot of trust. So in that initial stage, we should start looking for common ground and start looking for familiar, I can't say the word.
Familiar. It's late in the evening.
I've had it very late. Familiarity. Say it for me. Yeah. Familiarity. The word's escaping me. I've been up since very early this morning. But yeah, we should start looking to find common ground and find things that you can both connect and talk about and start to build a working relationship around. Because nothing's going to happen in the first days, weeks of mentoring an ex-offender or marginalised youth.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is finding that common ground, isn't it? Definitely. Yeah. And one of the exercises we'll do on one of the first events where everyone comes together is really looking at what our most important values are.
Yeah.
And I'll go into it another day, but long story short, my background's outdoor ed, and I know you're very practically orientated as well. So it's going to be none of this nonsense and loads of PowerPoint stuff. Very practical exercise, or one very practical exercise, looking at our top 8 values, and then as a group beginning to get a much deeper insight into what's most important to everyone and beginning to really get an insight into how we all tick. And the process we've developed from work with a more clinical description is very much geared and designed to help everyone to get that much deeper insight into what's unique about everyone on the program. So then, like you say, by osmosis, we begin to, some of those areas of common ground and common interest begin to come out naturally anyway. Well, certainly every other time that we've done this, it's happened like that anyway, so that's cool. So like I said, the biggest thing, it sounds like it's patience and curiosity.
Yeah, and don't let things progress naturally. Don't just expect to meet your mentee and just have all the answers and him have all of the questions. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, definitely. So it's like any relationship, isn't it? When we first meet somebody for the first time, we get to know each other better, isn't it? Yeah,
of course.
Perfect sense. Okay. I suppose if we jump straight in with, I think one of the most direct, and to some extent, could be perhaps one of the more uncomfortable questions. Which is come through, which is how will we ensure the safety of the mentors in the program?
That's a very, very good question. it's important for the lived experience mentors, me and the team that I've compiled for the purpose of the program, to constantly review and analyze the group dynamics, the atmosphere in the room, and see if there's any negative tensions. Because one thing that I'm a great advocate for is stopping negative things at the earliest possible opportunity. So as soon as we see that there's any sort of tension or any sort of animosity, that will be dealt with on a one-to-one basis. So one of the lived experience mentors or two of the lived experience mentors can speak to the person in question, and that's whether that's a manager who's having problems or grievances, or a mentee. We don't want things to escalate, and we are there to ensure the safety of the managers and the mentees throughout the duration of the program. That's very important to us. And I'd like to think after the interview process, because all applicants for this program will be interviewed, that we'll be able to sift out who's going to benefit and who wants to be a positive member of this program and who doesn't, who's going to waste time and who's going to potentially cause problems.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you make a very important point, which is, it's not just this young people that we just picked up and then bosh, they're on the program. There's a very clear and robust approach that you guys are very clearly taking and we're contributing to massively as well, and selecting the most appropriate people that, like you say, are ready to go on the program. And I suppose from a more technical perspective as well, I think we've been equally mindful that safety is a key component of it, which is where safeguarding is a core theme that's woven through both the preparatory sessions and the delivery of the program as well. Isn't it? We put a lot of time, effort, and thought into a robust safeguarding policy and procedure. Yeah, definitely. There's one quick example as well as at the beginning of each session, there's that group check-in, and again at the end, alongside lived experience mentors, like you say, being practically, physically there at all of the events as well. So so you can pick up those early indicators.
At the end of every session, Richard, there'll be an opportunity for anybody who wants to talk about anything, any problems, reservations, anything, like any issue at all that they have as an individual on the program, with myself, one of the lived experience mentors, or yourself.
Yeah,
so that there's going to be ample opportunity for us to prevent anything escalating as per our safeguarding policy.
And I don't know, all of the research and stuff I was digging around with last year in relation to the effectiveness of the types of programs we're delivering, not in one single instance was there any account of any really concerning events that took place where people felt that there was a genuine threat to anyone's safety on the program. Not one at all that I saw. So I think that certainly the likelihood of it as well is very minimal. But like I said in the outset, it's a very relevant and important question, isn't it? Okay. And then the second one, we've kind of alluded to it already, is so will someone be present to deal with any anger issues that might arise?
Yeah. Of course, myself or one of the lived experience mentors, we're all qualified mentors. I'm qualified in counselling. We've all got life experience in dealing with volatile situations and volatile people. And we hope that experience isn't going to be needed on this program.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that it won't be. Of course, none of us have got a crystal ball, so we can't guarantee what's going to happen in the future. But I'd like to think I could as close to guarantee that there's going to be no physical harm to anybody and no verbal abuse or abuse of any type. I'd like to think that everybody on program is there for the same reason, and that's to grow as a person within their personal and work life.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and certainly in the time I've got to know you, I mean, there's that old saying that nothing's guaranteed in life at the end of the day at all. Like I said, we wouldn't actually be able to ever guarantee that. But certainly in the time I've spent with you, and I've got a very clear appreciation and impression that you really know your stuff when it comes to being really aware and measured and considered in both the way that you present yourself and how others around you are interacting as well. And I think, I think you're certainly one of the best people to have in being present, just in case something like that does happen. I'm sure you'll deal with it appropriately. We kind of have to throw in what you were doing this morning around dressing up as a copper for some promotional stuff that you were doing. So worst case, no, we can always bring you in.
Dressed
Just
in
like that.
uniform and come there and arrest someone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a story for another day. Anyway, I'm mindful of the time slot because it is late as well. So next question. So are the young people on the program, are they there? Will they be there voluntarily?
Yes and no.
Right.
Yes to the point where they've volunteered, that they want to be part of the program, they want to change their lives, they want to grow personally, but then no in the terms of, if we don't think they're ready, they're not coming on the program.
Yeah.
So yes and no. And that alleviates the concern from the last question, that somebody might say, I'm happy, I want to come on the program, I want to meet business professionals, and I want to become an integral member of society, but really they want to come and cause trouble. So yes and no.
Yeah. So it's yes with conditions.
Yes, exactly.
It sounds a bit like my marriage from my wife. Anyway, I'm going to stop.
No, Richard, I'll go as far to say it's not yes with conditions, it's yes and then no. Because if somebody wants to come on the program, but we can tell that they're not ready, it doesn't matter what conditions they propose to inflict on themselves, the answer's still no.
Okay. Sounds sensible. Okay.
Because we have to keep people safe in the program. We have to make sure that nobody hinders the progression of anybody else. Because this program has been geared to change lives and change mindsets. So I'll be damned if we're going to have one troublemaker or one class clown, if you like. It's not going to happen. Sure.
Okay. So it's yes in terms of getting the right people. It's the right volunteers putting themselves forward for it, isn't it?
Yeah. Then it's yes for them.
Cool. Perfect. Cool. Okay. So what will the mentors be mentoring the young people in?
The business mentors will be mentoring the young people in a variety of life skills and business skills. So things like preparation, things like punctuality, things like goal setting, key fundamentals that help somebody to progress in business and their personal lives. So it could be something as small as the mentee discussing a friend that they have, that they're not too sure whether they should keep in contact with this friend or whether they should try and find different pursuits and ways to spend their time. So it could be something as trivial and as small, if you like, as that, or to something major like a mentee discussing moving to another city and changing a career path. So it just depends on the dynamics of that conversation and on what that conversation is about. What we're looking for is we're looking for business professionals to, if you like, open up their mind's eye, open up their knowledge, wisdom, life experience to these mentees to kind of pull them up the ladder a bit and allow them to flourish in society. And then that adds the value back. And in doing so, it's going to add tremendous value to the mentor that's giving and sharing that information. Because there's nothing better for any teacher than watching their student learn. And we all learn something from watching that student learn, and it refines us.
Yeah, it's like collaborative relationship to a large extent, isn't it? And I think as well, picking up on a couple of points, there's something around the more holistic life skill side of it. And then also the way I've always thought of it is, for most of the mentors on the program, all of the mentors on the program, they, for want of a better description, have kind of learned the code of how to develop a career. And it's sharing, those little tips and those hints and those pieces of advice to actually, when you have got that first job, that first rung on the ladder where you can develop, you've got opportunities to develop a career for yourself. It's how to capitalize on that. And then also the other point to make as well is, and you alluded to it, each of the mentors, each of the mentees, some of their outcomes and expectations are going to be different. And what that'll mean is, it may well be that their assigned mentor may not be the most appropriate expert and experienced person in a particular area, but another mentor on the program would be. So there's something around what is called like a matrix structure. So although each mentee has a dedicated mentor, it's all about making sure actually that mentee has access to the best person that we've got access to provide some support in a specific area. So there will be points in the program, and this sort of makes it quite fluid and more exciting, where the mentees and the mentors start to mix with each other and share different experiences and different insights. You know,
Again, that's
school,
something.
buddy.
Again, that's something that would no, not in school. Just trying to be polite. I should have went like this. Yeah. So I think this is something again that's going to progress naturally, because naturally the mentors are going to get speaking to each other on program, and as a mentee approaches their mentor and says that they would like assistance or a contact in a particular area or field of work, the mentor, being a business person, is naturally going to know the closest person to provide that is Ian, who's also on the program, and he's going to make the connection, which is brilliant, because that's getting the mentee ready for the wider world, because that's what we all do as business people. So it's kind of allowing them to thrive in this bubble before they're being released out into the world to go and conduct life in this reprogrammed manner, if you like. So these things are going to progress naturally, and it's going to be it is a pleasure to watch things like this progress. So it's going to be a pleasure on program watching these things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great thing. Interesting. It comes back to what we were talking about earlier around it's not just collaboration between the mentor and the mentee. It's a wider collaboration with everyone on program as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So next question. So will the mentees be employed?
Will the mentees be employed? It's dependent. Every case is going to be different. We'd like to think that, well, not even we'd like to think, we aim for every mentee to have engaged with full-time education, full-time employment, or part-time education and employment by at least the end of the program. So if a mentee already has a part-time job or work that they frequent, that's great, and we'd support that. And if they can progress within that workplace, great. If they're not happy there and want to work somewhere else, then the advice they get might be to leave that place of work in pursuit of work elsewhere. So it's just, every case is going to be unique. We can't really generalize because we don't know who the people are or what issues they may or may not have.
And just on that point as well, I think it's probably a good point to talk about the additional wraparound support that both yourself and your team of mentors will be providing in addition to this element of the program.
Okay, so because the program is only going to run physically once every 6 weeks when everybody comes together, the lived experience mentors on our side of the program, the facilitator side of the program, are going to be providing around the clock support to the mentees. Now, what that means is that the mentees will all have a phone, whereas if a problem arises or they're having an issue where they need a bit of an additional support, they'll be able to call somebody from my team who will support them and help them to work through their problem. This is to give all mentees on program the best chance at success within this program.
I think as well it helps to really establish a much deeper relationship with each of the mentees as well, not just with the mentors in the program, but wider with the additional people providing support, isn't it?
Yeah.
And next question is, where will mentors meet their mentee? Do you want me to go first on this one?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So actually, this is in normal times, in the absence of COVID, this would be the most straightforward question on this planet. Because of COVID, it makes it a little bit more tricky. What I mean by that is the location that we use will still need to ensure that it's got all of the facilities to make absolutely sure that we can come together when we do face-to-face in a massively COVID secure environment. So we've got 2 venues at the moment, one just outside Dudley, which is a pretty cool outdoor adventure space with some decent indoor facilities as well. And there's another place that we're just looking at the moment, just outside North Birmingham, just I think it's junction 6 of the M6. So the key thing with the physical location is that the space is massive. So we can maintain more than adequate social distancing. There's all of the facilities in place to ensure that everybody can be kept as safe as possible and manage and minimize the risk of any transmission. And also in terms of accessibility, so relative, accessible both in public transport and private cars and vehicles as well. Is there anything you want to add to that one as well, Zeke?
No, other than we have to comply with all government regulations, just as any business does. So depending on what the regulations are at the time would be dependent on how stringent operating will be. So that's practically the way I see it, if you like, Richard. But yeah, the venues that you've mentioned,
just make sure everyone's, it's not just as safe as possible, but we all genuinely feel that we're being kept as safe and as looked after as possible as well, isn't it? Okay. So the next question is, so what's the intended outcome for the young person?
To engage with full-time employment or full-time education, part-time education, part-time employment.
Okay. And also for the odd one to say, actually, I don't want to do any of that, and they're going to set up their own business.
And to start their own business and become integral members of society.
Yeah.
We're looking for major improvement, and we're looking to stop to make these people not ex-offenders anymore and just make them citizens.
Yeah, exactly. You help them on that journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sounds cool. And this kind of builds on the last question anyway. So will this lead to employment opportunities for the young people?
Yes, I'd like to hope so. And I'm looking for managers who see potential within their mentees to promote this, to share contacts, to maybe promote work placements or provide work placements or provide apprenticeships or highlight apprenticeship or employment opportunities for their mentees if and only if they see the potential. Because I imagine that some of the managers are going to see a lot of potential within some of these young people, and I would like and expect this mentorship to promote education and work. So yeah, I'd like to think that by the end of this program, that's definitely in process.
I tell you, I love it. My daughter just popped her head in the door a minute ago as well. It's priceless.
So did my cousin.
I think that's a very good point to end on, isn't it? It connects back to our first video around a lot of young people just haven't had the opportunity in the past.
Yeah.
And this program is the beginning of giving them access to some of those opportunities, and through the support of their mentor, feeling really empowered and supported to reach out and grab some of those opportunities and make the absolute best of them as well.
Yeah, because the mentors know that the opportunities exist. The mentees don't.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very good point, isn't it? So yeah, our mentors can give the mentees that insight. Happy days.
Yeah.
Well,
if we can get any sales executives on the program, I'd be really happy. I know we're speaking to some, but if we can get any more sales executives on the program, I'd greatly appreciate that. Any marketing professionals on the program, I'd greatly appreciate that. And because many different skill sets and as possible that we have will create a better group dynamic.
Yeah, sounds good. So we've got marketing and sales. If there was one other type of role within an organisation that you think would be really beneficial both for the young people and the individuals in that role, is there another one that comes to mind?
Maybe property professionals, so people who have estate agents or development companies, that sort of stuff, because it's very hard to get your foot on the property ladder if you come from a council estate and you've lived a life of not having a job. So if somebody could highlight avenues for employment or training in these sectors is remarkable, because it might be an opportunity these people will never have.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. Yeah. So there we have it. There's three main roles, definitely, that you can see from your perspective that would be enormously beneficial both to the young people and obviously for the mentors being trained and developed as well, isn't it? Happy
Yeah.
days. Well, we now need to kind of decide what our third recording is going to be about, but we shall leave that for another time. But for those that have been listening, then hopefully that's helped to allay some of the main questions and concerns that are perhaps bouncing around in some people's minds. And if there are others, then by all means, there's our email addresses, contact details on this page as well. So please feel free to email us and we will respond and probably do another video interview along these lines as well. Thanks very much, Lee.